Welcome to our Seed to Harvest online. You guys have probably all been to some of our Seed to Harvest sessions at school, but obviously right now we can't be at school. So I'm trying really hard to do it at my house, and it's also just trying to keep me busy because I get bored just like you guys do. So I am trying to keep the garden going. So even if you can't go back to school this year, if you go back to go ride your bikes around or something like that, you guys should be able to stop and harvest some food once things start to turn around here. All right. So for fourth grade, so last year in third grade, we did that really cool butterfly garden, and you guys got to watch the butterflies grow up. So this year, you guys get to grow what is honestly my favorite plant to grow, and it's the potato. And the potatoes are just a lot of fun because, like carrots, you don't really know what you have until you harvest it. So you get to dig it up from underground because our potatoes are like carrots growing underground. So what I want to do, and you guys can unmute yourselves as I ask questions, but I want to really quickly make sure you guys haven't forgotten anything. We're going to review really quickly the parts of the plant. Okay, we're going to talk about what makes potatoes so interesting and different than other plants. Okay, can you guys see my board here?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So if we have a plant, all right, and here we have our ground. I'm going to do some different colors. And we have our stem. We have all of our other side stems. We have our leaves. All right. We have our flowers. We have our fruits. Oh, that yellow is not working so well. Let's see if I can grab another yellow. There we go. We have our fruits, and either in our flower or in the case of what we're talking about today, potatoes, the fruit actually contains the seeds. So sometimes the seeds will grow right on a flower. Sometimes the seeds will grow inside the fruit. All right. So we have, let's just recap, stems, which are important for transporting all of the nutrients throughout the plant. And our stems are also helping to keep our plant upright or climbing, depending on the type of plant we're looking at. We have our leaves, which in our next session for the fourth graders, we're going to talk about photosynthesis. Our leaves are like solar panels collecting light to help the plant make its own food. We have our flowers, which attract our pollinators. And with the pollination, they're able to produce the seeds. Now there's something missing on this plant. Can anybody tell me what is missing from this plant?
Sun.
Sorry, say again?
The sun.
No?
Roots.
Anybody else? Roots, exactly.
Oh, roots.
We are missing the roots. And our roots, we're going to talk a little bit more about today, but our roots are very important because not only do they absorb the nutrients and moisture from underneath the ground, but our roots are also keeping the plant in the ground. They're anchoring it in the soil and grabbing on to the soil so that it doesn't blow over in the wind, okay? So our roots are very important. So when our plants are making energy, okay, and we're going to talk about how they do that in the next session, but our plants are producing energy, and they're going to use some of that energy in order to grow. So our plants are going to grow more leaves, get taller. They're going to start producing flowers, and they need energy and food in order to do that. But they have some excess food. Like when they generate more food than they need to grow, where does that food go? Do you guys know where it puts the food? And guesses?
Maybe they put it in leaves.
So not quite in the leaves, although, you know, to make the leaves, yes. But there's something in here. I don't know if you guys remember all the way back to kindergarten, but we talked about how parent plants like to take care of their children to make sure that they grow into healthy new plants. So what are the children in this plant right here?
Seeds.
The seed. Exactly. So our parent plant wants to make sure that the baby plant or the embryo inside the seed, so this is my little embryo, okay, making sure that this embryo has food to grow when it wakes up in the spring. And so what happens is some of the extra energy they put into food inside the seed with the embryo, okay? And we call that the food store, all right? So the plant is using the energy that it produces to grow for the seed. And also, some plants are perennial. Does anybody know what perennial means? Any guesses? Let's see. A marigold is, sorry, my son is touching the microphone. The marigold is an annual plant. This means that the plant is going to grow and then die back every year in the winter. A perennial plant means that the plant can survive year after year, okay, or for multiple years. So, like what? Sorry?
Grass.
Like grass. You can probably see around me, I got kicked out of the house today, so I'm outside. So I have lots of perennial plants around me. We've got grass. What else do we have back here?
Evergreen trees.
Lots of evergreen, and really any tree, right? Lots of trees are going to, even though their leaves are going to fall and die off, the tree itself is living, all right? And actually, I'll tell you something I learned about this in a second, but so in order to survive, like when the trees lose their leaves, okay, and they are living through the winter, are they able to produce energy from the sun when they don't have any leaves? If we talk about the ones that are deciduous. No. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I saw a shake. Okay. So they really can't produce energy other than getting maybe water and nutrients from the ground. They can't use the sunlight if they don't have their little solar panels. So what these perennial plants do is they store food that they can use throughout the winter to stay alive, but also even more importantly, that they can use in the spring when they're ready to start growing again, okay? So an example that I learned, I don't know if you guys know, but I started a community organic farm, and I did Maple Magic one year. Do you guys know what Maple Magic is? Has anybody gone to that? It's where they harvest all the maple syrup. You went there one? Yep. So
yeah,
I might have even
I
been
went there in February. It tasted good. I got some of the fruit pancakes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the pancakes are delicious, and especially with the maple syrup. And the reason we are able to get the maple syrup from those trees is because that sap that's running throughout the tree, that's the energy that the tree stored for the winter, moving back up through the tree trunk in order to prepare for spring. So what happens is these plants will push their food down into the roots so that it doesn't freeze, and they store it in their roots underground throughout the winter, and then they are able to use that when they start growing again in the spring, okay? So today we're talking about what?
Potatoes.
Potatoes. So
potatoes.
Yeah, oh, I love boiled potatoes. So potatoes are really cool because they grow underground, all right? So if we look at this plant, what kind of plant does this kind of look like? If we made this red. This kind of looks, well, maybe like, well, I'm not even gonna tell you. I'm gonna actually not tell you yet because I actually am gonna use this as something else. But this plant is basically a potato plant. But the potatoes you can't see here yet because where they are is they're growing underground, okay? And do you guys know what part of the plant they're growing from?
They're growing from the roots.
So that's actually what a lot of people think. They think that these roots are going to blow up like a balloon and that it's going to grow. Because if you know, if you look at, sorry, I'm going to see if I can erase some of this. If you look at a carrot, how a carrot grows is that it has the root that goes into the ground. Lost my green. There we go. All right. It has its stems and its leaves above ground. And then the carrot, which can be perennial, is going to be adding food around the root system. Okay. So that's what makes the carrot. The potato is a little bit different. Even though we call it a root vegetable because it grows underground, it's actually growing from the stem, okay? So what happens on a potato is it has these little shoots from the stem that go off to the side, and at the ends of those shoots, it starts to blow up like a balloon. All right, and it's underground, and it produces a food store for the plant, which we call a potato. The really cool thing, I'm going to switch over to my screen share in a minute, but the really great thing about potatoes and why I like growing them is, one, you can get a lot of potatoes just by planting a potato and then just not doing another thing to it, just leaving it underground. But if you want to produce a lot of potatoes, what you can do is you can just keep exposing more of the stem to the soil, okay? So as your plant gets taller and taller, you can mound or add some more dirt around the stem. And once the stem is covered in more dirt, it will grow more shoots off the side and it will grow more potatoes. So you can just keep adding as it grows, add more and more soil, and more potatoes will grow. It's very cool. Now these potatoes have to grow underground because this plant can actually be toxic. So anything above ground is poisonous to us and we can get sick if we eat it. But as long as it's growing underground, we can eat it. Now these potatoes, these really cool things, the other thing that's cool about them is that they are not just a food store. These potatoes, have you guys ever seen, I don't know if you can see it up close. Can you see these little divots in the potato?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody know what those are called?
No.
No?
I don't think. Wait.
How the potato looks at you.
Eyes.
They're called eyes. Okay. So these eyes, if you look at this one, this eye has like a little nub inside the middle of that little divot. These potatoes are actually can be used as a seed or instead of a seed. They don't need to be pollinated. What they are is each of these little eyes contains a clone of the parent plant. So from this, if I were to plant this eye could potentially sprout and become a new potato plant. And because it's a clone, it would be the identical genetic makeup of the parent. So I'm going to show you, we call these, when we plant a potato and grow a new potato from the existing one, we call those seed potatoes. Now here's one that has already sprouted, and this is one that we're going to plant today. All right, look at that. It looks like a little alien. It's got all kinds of sprouts coming out from it.
It's
And
like
each
a cartoon bunny gone wrong.
Yeah, it kind of does. And it's cool because each of these stems, each of these sprouts will become a new potato plant. So
It looks
this
weird.
One, it does look weird. I love these. I think they look so cool. And we're going to draw one in a second because I think these look fun. So these clones, if I wanted to, I could just plant this potato as it is. It's got about 3 or 4, it's actually got 4 sprouts coming out of it, and it would grow 4 different plants. But if I don't want them all growing one right next to the other, what I can do is I can cut it and make 2 separate seed potatoes. Okay.
What's the end of it?
What's the end of it? You mean on the top here?
No, like like that white thing.
Oh, this guy right here?
Yeah.
That's just another sprout. So it just hasn't grown as much. It's almost like hugging the potato right now.
How many sprouts are there?
So I have 1 here. So 1, 2 down here, 3 is this big one, and then 4 is another little one.
Wait, those 2 next to each other?
Yep, these 2, this is actually just one. It's just that it's got multiple stems coming out of it.
Oh.
So if I were to cut this, if I wanted to plant this 2 sets, let's see if I can do this with a very sharp knife. So let's see if I can do this without cutting myself. But what I would do is I would make sure that I had at least 2 sprouts on each piece. So now I have 2 seed pieces, okay? Now, the food that is inside this potato, like I said, it can help the potato grow and stay alive throughout the winter. But it is also, like a seed, it is a food source for these clones. So what you'll notice, and I'm going to get another potato here just to demonstrate a little bit better. What you notice, if you can see it, can you see how it's kind of like, instead of this potato that's nice and smooth, this one's like shriveled up and it almost looks like it's like a prune. Well, the reason it is that way is because this seed potato has sprouted. And this sprout needs something to survive. It needs something to eat while it's waiting to grow, while it's waiting to be planted and then grow in the soil. So it is slowly eating the food that is in this potato. If I left this for another week or two, it would shrivel up to almost nothing. And then eventually it would run out of food and it would die, okay? So this is a food source for our sprout before it's able to start growing and produce its own food, okay? So very cool. We've got our clones, we've got our sprouts, our seed potatoes. And so what we're gonna do is, in a second, we're gonna actually go ahead and grow one of these. But let me screen share for just a second. I'm gonna show you guys the actual parts of the plant. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah? Okay, great. So this is a potato plant, all right? So potato plants actually produce fruit above ground, but like I said, you can't eat anything that's above ground because it's toxic. So the only parts that we as humans can eat are what are underneath the soil, okay? And you'll see that we have these stems, and then we have these stem pieces that come off, and then the potatoes are gonna grow at the end. This stem piece here is called a stolon. So that's right here, the stolon piece, whoops. And so the stolon is the stem piece that comes off that the tuber, which is what we call a potato, it's called a tuber, that tuber is gonna grow off of the stolon, okay? I also wanted to show you what it looks like underground when those stolons grow. So our stolon almost looks like a root underground, but you'll see that over time, as it starts to add more food into the stolon piece, it almost blows up like a water balloon, okay? And that's what's happening underground, is that it is starting to add more and more energy to that tuber, and then that produces the potato, okay? So let's go back over to our screen. So what I wanted to do you guys want to learn how I draw these awesome potatoes? So I think they look really cool. And also I have a contest that I do almost every week. I didn't do one last week because of the, it was vacation week, even though we didn't have vacation. So this week's contest is going to be to draw or create a potato person, basically, or monster, or whatever you want it to look like. And there's 3 ways you could do it. 1, you could draw it. 2, you could like cut out pieces from, almost like a Mr. Potato Head, cut out pieces of paper and build your potato. Or you can even, if you have a potato that your parents allow you to use, you don't want to eat your food if you need that as food, but if you have a potato that your parents will let you use, you can even dress up a regular old potato too. But just send me a picture of your creation and you get entered in the contest. The next week I pick a winner and you guys get a gift card from Amazon, okay? So you guys can get books or something like that, okay? So I'll post it in my, for your parents to see on Facebook, or I'll maybe even send an email around, but you can just send it to me, okay? Now, where you can send it, let me actually just give you my email address really quickly so that you guys, let me see if I can do this. As much time as I spend on this tool, I always forget exactly where all this stuff is, all these tools. Let's see. Nope.
Question.
All right, I was gonna try to annotate something, but I honestly can't figure out where the heck that is. So what I'm going to do is I am just gonna pull up a screen here and just type in my email address so that way you guys can see it. Actually, you know what? I'll just use chat. You guys know how to use chat, right?
I have to go.
You have to. That's okay. No problem. You can come in and take a look at this later. Okay. if you want to. Your mom has the link, but it's on we have a new YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
So you can go there also if you want to check out how things are growing. I'm going to keep posting videos to show you guys how your potatoes are growing. Okay. And I just
Alright.
posted my email address to the chat if you guys want to email any creations to me. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. You're welcome. I'll see you later. Enjoy your lesson. All right. So let's go ahead and let's draw one of these potatoes. All right. So I'm just going to clean this good because it's hard to see if there's extra chalk residue on here. Okay. So how I like to draw, and you guys can draw a potato in any way that you want, but I just think that they're so cool with their tentacles, their little sprouts, that they look like they have arms, and they have their eyes that make them look like they have faces. So what I like to do is first draw the shape or the outline of my potato. So our potatoes are usually a little bit misshapen. Maybe they have some bumps on them. So I kind of draw an oval. Okay. Then I go around and I draw some eyes. And how I draw the eyes to look like divots is I draw them almost like C shapes. Okay. So I just basically put a little C here, maybe put another C down here, another C. Okay. And those are going to be my eyes. All right. I'm going to put a couple other here. Now, some of the eyes aren't going to have really anything except for maybe a little teeny sprout poking out of them. But then some of the eyes are going to actually have sprouts. So I like to draw them with a point at the end, almost like the tentacle of a squid. Okay. So I'm going to do another one on this side. Now our sprouts, if we look at them, they have almost like little stems or leaves coming out from the side. So they're not perfectly smooth. Okay, they have bumps on them. So then I like to come through and I'm going to make this guy green. Now our potatoes can be all kinds of colors. They can be white or kind of like a beige color. You can have red potatoes. You can have blue or purple potatoes. So potatoes can be all different colors. All right. So then I put some of the little stems. This is the yellow that doesn't work. All right. Put like little stems or the little sprouts or the leaves coming out from the sides. All right. Just to give a little bit more character. All right. And then if I wanted, I could almost make this guy look like he had legs too. All right. And I could put some shoots coming down. All right. Maybe I even wanted to make this potato a weight builder, and I can almost look like he's using broccoli to pump iron. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just do another sprout at the bottom. Then you can do whatever you want. You can make him look like he's doing all kinds of funny things, or you can make him serious. I always like to give my potatoes some kind of like cartoonish eyes, just because I think it makes it look funny. So I'm just going to give us two big eyes like that. And then I'm going to give him a nice smile. All right. So this is my silly potato. All right. So you guys can take this offline and you can draw your own potatoes or create your potato creations and then send them to me, and I will post them so other people can see, and I'll let you guys know if you won. Okay, so we'll do a random drawing from whoever submits their potato. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Where do you submit it?
You submit it to seed2harvest@benhampto.org.
Okay, I got that down.
Awesome.
Wait, I forgot the Ben. Okay.
Okay, and it's okay if you can't draw. You can just take things like just pieces of paper and cut them and place them in different, like glue them in, or like I said, you can just take a potato and dress it up with sticks. Whatever you want, you can do. All right, I'm not too picky. I just like to see that you guys are interested in this stuff and you want to get involved. So
I'm interested in anything that involves food that tastes good and and doing art.
Oh, good. Well, so it's a little sad for me that we are not in school right now to do this, because what I always get to do with the fourth graders with some of the kids at the end of the year, and I don't know if any of you guys did it last year with me, but we would harvest potatoes and we would make potato chips, and we would harvest kale and we'd make kale chips. So
I did it at the Natick Organic Farm.
Oh, you did? Oh, good. So we're not going to obviously be able to do that together this year, but what I'll do is I'll post kind of like a little cooking show and show you guys how I do it at home, and you can maybe do it with your parents as well. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on. I just want to take a little break to do something fun, and then we'll go back to the actual material. All right. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to screen share again for you guys.
Yep, I'm on Zoom.
Okay. All right. Okay, can you guys see my screen? So this was our agenda for the day. So we already talked about how potatoes grow and how to draw a potato. So now what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you two different potatoes that I have, okay? And actually I'll go back to the screen for a second. So we already saw this potato. This is a russet potato. This is really good for mashed potatoes or baked potatoes. Delicious. Fries, whatever. Fries are good. Now this is a sweet potato.
Oh, my mom makes really good mashed sweet potatoes.
Mashed sweet potatoes? I love sweet potatoes. So if you look at these two side by side, can you guys tell me some of the differences between these two potatoes? Are there any differences? First of all, what's different? One's orange, which is the sweet potato. This one's kind of more of a white, like a beige color.
Yeah, beige.
What else? Do you see anything else that's different about them? Bring it in close.
That one has bumps and that one has lines.
Yeah, exactly. This one has those divots, those eyes. And then this one has just kind of more texture, right? They're lines, but there's really nothing growing out of them. Anything else? Maybe the shape?
Yeah, they're definitely the shape.
Yeah, so this one is more symmetrical. It's like rounded on both ends. This one seems to kind of taper off at the end, is a little bit pointed, okay? So there's definitely some differences. Now they're similar because they both grow underground. They both have the name potato in them, right? And they're roughly about the same size. So they're similar as well, but there are some differences, okay? So now what I want to do is I want to look at a picture, all right? You guys are going to work with me here. And in this picture, there are 3 plants, and I'm not going to tell you which plant is which, although you can probably tell from looking at it. But what I want you to do is look at them and try to determine which one you think is most closely related, okay? So sometimes if you look at a family, a group of people that are family and friends, you can usually tell who's family because they look a little bit alike, right? So based on these plants, what are some of the things, first of all, in your mind, try to decide which 2 you think are most similar, and let me know that, and then tell me why. Why do you think that they're most closely related?
The first and the third.
The first and the third? So this one right here, and this one right here. And why do you think they're most closely related?
Because they're both potatoes that you just showed us.
Yep, so they both have the tubers growing underground, right? So this one has these tubers here. This one has these tubers down here. All right, great. Any other guesses?
Well, the second one is a tomato plant, and there's nothing growing under it, so I agree with Lucas.
Okay, so you agree. Does anybody else not agree? Does anybody have a different answer, or is everybody pretty much in agreement there?
Agreement.
Agreement, okay. Well, I hate to tell you guys this, but you are wrong. So that that third plant, which is the sweet potato plant, even though it does have tubers, it actually differs from the potato plant over here on the left because the sweet potato is growing its tubers from the roots, and the potato is growing its tubers from the stem, stolen. Also, you'll see that the potato plant stands up straight and tall. The sweet potato plant actually has a curved vine. It crawls on the ground or grows up lattices. Also, if you look at the shape of the leaves, our potato plant has leaves that are pointed at the ends, but they're smooth, whereas the sweet potato plant has almost like heart-shaped leaves, okay? So if you look at the flowers, they're also a little bit different. The flowers on the potato have 5 points, and the flower on the sweet potato is kind of like a trumpet shaped, okay? Whereas if we look at the one in the middle, you'll see a lot of similarities between the potato and the tomato. All right, their leaf shapes are similar. They have similar 5-pointed star flowers, and they both have fruit that looks like tomato. So in actuality, the tomato and the potato are most closely related. Okay. All right. So you guys can still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. I want to make sure. I got a little notice saying my internet connection was poor, so hopefully I don't lose you guys. So what we just did when we were looking at the similarities between the potato and the sweet potato is that we were doing something called plant classification. Now, have you guys ever heard of animal classification in science or just in TV shows?
I'm pretty sure. Is it like, is it like identifying something?
It is identifying, yeah. So plant classification is when you are basically grouping plants. So they do this, why I said animals, because people are usually more familiar with it with animals, right? So you have your mammals and you have your insects, like those are different groups of animals. So for plants, they're grouping the plants together as well. And botanists are the scientists that study plants. And they do this all of the time, okay? And they're trying to group different plants in different categories. And it's very similar, like I said, to just comparing, seeing how closely they're related, because you might have similar characteristics with a brother or a sister, but you're not going to have the same like eyes or hair or whatever to your best friend who is not related to you at all. But you have some similarities, meaning that you're both human, right? And maybe you guys are both about the same age, maybe the same height. So you can have similarities, but the more closely related you are, the more similarities you have, okay? So have you guys heard of the animal kingdom?
Yeah.
Disney World, yeah. So the animal kingdom, the kingdom is the highest level of classification. That means that the higher up you are, see this funnel here? The higher up you are, that means that the lesser things that you have in common, okay? So if I said the animal kingdom, there are millions of different animals in that animal kingdom. They're all in the same kingdom, but they're very different still, okay? There's also the plant kingdom, which is what we're looking at, okay? As you go down, the similarities increase. So for example, if you get down to family, you're going to have a plant or an animal that are very similar. So maybe they're all primates, meaning monkeys and orangutans and things like that, or mammals. So the further down you get in this funnel, the more similar they are. So for plants, they go through and the botanists are trying to classify them maybe based on what their root system is like. Or are they a stem that grows tall, or are they a vine? Do they have certain toxicity? Are they poisonous? What shape are their leaves? And they're going and they're trying to group these plants together to know what is similar. So when we looked at the potato and the sweet potato a moment ago, you don't have to know all these names and everything, but these are all those different categories in that funnel. And what you'll see is they are the same all the way down to the family. Where the potato is in the potato family, the sweet potato is in the morning glory family. And the morning glory is a flower, and it's more closely related to other flowers than it is to the potato. So after the family, they're different from that point on. It's either nightshade or morning glory, and then down to the Irish potato or the sweet potato. So they start to differ at the family. If we look at the tomato, you'll notice that they are the same all the way down to the species. So they are both in the potato family, they are both in the nightshade family, and then only down to the species is where they differ. So they're very closely related. And the reason why botanists are trying to classify these plants is, one, so they're easy to identify. Now on my phone, I have an app that allows me to just take a picture of a plant and it tells me what it is. But the reason it knows what it is because scientists have gone through and they've created a database full of how these plants are classified and what their different properties are. And the reason I might want to be able to identify them is if I go for a hike and I see a plant, I might want to know, one, is it poisonous? Is it poison ivy? Am I going to be itchy for the rest of the day? But also, can I eat it? Is it something that's safe for me to eat and can I get sustenance from it? Also, as a gardener, I need to know, how do I take care of these plants? And different plants that are similar have the same needs. And so it allows me to take care of them better. And then also for medicinal qualities. So right now, you guys probably know there's like race to find cures and vaccines and all those kinds of things for all of for the COVID and everything else that's going on. A lot of scientists look to plants. And if they know that one type of plant is able to cure a certain virus, but maybe it doesn't impact COVID, well, maybe they might look at another plant that is in the same family and has similar properties that might be beneficial, okay? So there are many reasons why scientists are looking to classify these plants, all right? So we're not gonna actually go through and classify plants today because it's kind of hard to do when we're over the internet here. So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna plant some potatoes. All right, so give me 1 second here while I try to get out of, actually, you know what, I'm gonna go back up to my thing here. Bear with me, guys. I have a lot of screens. Here we go. All right, so we just look at plant classification. Oh, one thing, really cool thing I wanted to show you. Is, remember I talked about potatoes and tomatoes are very closely related. They require the same nutrients and they have a very similar structure. So there's something really cool that gardeners and botanists can do. It's called grafting. Has anybody here ever heard of grafting? I'm gonna guess not. Grafting is when you can take a piece of one plant and you can move it over and almost surgically attach it to a similar plant. So my father-in-law actually does this with apples and pears. He wanted to have an apple tree. He also wanted to grow pears, but he didn't have enough space in his backyard. So what he did is he took an apple tree and then he cut a little slice off of one of the branches. Then he took a branch from a pear tree and he taped it on to where that slice was in the apple tree. And then what happened is that branch from the pear tree grew onto the apple tree. And now he has a tree that grows both apples and pears, which I think is pretty cool. Well, the really neat thing is that they now are doing this with tomatoes and potatoes. So they have created a grafted plant that you can buy and grow at home. And it's called the ketchup and fries, okay? So I'm gonna move you guys over here. There we go. And see if, sorry, I have to see if I can, there we go. This is called a ketchup and fries plant. So what they did was they started to grow a potato plant, then they cut the top off of it and they replaced the top with a tomato plant. Because remember, potatoes, anything that grows above ground for a potato is toxic to us. It's part of the nightshade family and we can't eat anything green above the ground for a potato. But tomatoes are not toxic and they're in the same family. So they were able to attach the tomato stem to the potato base. And now they have these ketchup and fry plants that are going to, that you can grow both tomatoes and potatoes on. So I'm just going to show you guys this really quickly. See if I can do this. All right. You guys can still hear me?
I can't see anything.
That's okay. I haven't done it yet. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm just gonna play this really quickly. Hopefully it's rewound. Let's see if my internet connection will stick.
Hello, my name is Bridget, and I am an employee at Gardner Supply Company, and I wanted to introduce to you a 2-for-1 plant that we have called Ketchup and Fries. It's got the tomato plant on top, potato plant grafted to the tomato plant, so you can grow these in small spaces. The 2-for-1 plant is created by skilled horticulturists who hand graft a tomato plant on top of a potato plant. Tomatoes and potatoes are in the same plant family, so they're naturally compatible. There is no genetic modification necessary. Grafting these 2 plants is an all-natural process. In a few months after planting, you'll start to harvest sweet cherry tomatoes, and this will continue all summer long. They're perfect for snacking right out of the garden, adding to salads, or roasting. So you'll notice that the tomatoes are already done for the season. We've been harvesting them for most of the summer. They're small, sweet, and delicious. So now we're going to start by removing the cage and seeing what's down below. Off comes the cage. Tomato plant. We'll now cut the tomato plant off. And now we're going to go digging for those potatoes, which have been growing with the tomato plant as they are grafted together. We'll start digging around, looking for the buried treasure that's growing below. And you will notice potatoes magically grafted onto the tomato plant, successfully growing down below. So, look at these beauties. Come the fries.
All right, so I just wanted to show you that because I thought it was pretty cool. I've never actually grown one of these, but I think that would be a really neat experiment to do at some point, is to get one of those and grow it. So what we're going to do now is we are going to plant our potatoes. And these potatoes, remember how I said that you can just keep adding more and more soil and you can get more and more potatoes? Well, what we're going to do is, instead of growing our potatoes inside our garden right now, what we're going to do is we're going to grow them inside a bag. Okay, so this is our potato bag, and it's pretty tall, so it allows us to keep adding more and more dirt as our plant gets bigger. All right, and then it also allows me to move them around. So I'm growing these at my house right now, but in a little bit I'm going to go ahead and bring them over to the garden so that as they're ready to harvest, you guys can come back and harvest them with your parents or your family. So we're going to use our seed potatoes, and these are a red, white, and blue mix, which is great for 4th of July potato salads. Okay, so we're going to do red, white, and blue. And based on the classification and the study of potatoes that botanists have done in the past, we know that they have certain needs. They need certain kind of nutrients. So they need lots of potassium and nitrogen, but they also need some acidity. And so what we're going to do is, rather than just use dirt, straight dirt, we're going to make sure that we mix a few things so that they're healthy. All right. So what our potatoes need is, they need compost. So really nutrient-rich compost. They need what's called peat moss. And peat moss is just moss that grows in swamps that they have composted. It has some acidity, which is what we're going to add for our potatoes. And then we're going to add this kind of light, fluffy stuff. It's called vermiculite. And vermiculite just helps to make sure that our soil has air in it, and it makes sure that we have moisture without keeping it really damp. Like, we don't want our soil to be too wet, otherwise our potatoes could rot out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to mix this together. So usually I do, for every 4 scoops that I do of the compost, I do 2 scoops of the peat moss. And obviously I can't count. I need to go back to school because I only did 2 of the compost. And then we do 1 scoop of the vermiculite. And we keep doing that until we get about 3 or 4 inches of soil in our bag. So there with me as I do the work. Usually at school, I love having you guys at school because you get to do all this work for me. We usually have a race, so I'm going to bring my microphone over here so you can hear me better. We usually have a race to see who can fill the bags fastest. All right, so let's do this. I'll do this as quickly as I can. I'm older, so I don't go as fast as you guys do. All right, so now I'm going to go backwards just to save time. So these things are really fun to harvest. This is why I like growing potatoes so much, because when we're ready to harvest, if we were in a garden, we'd have to take a shovel and try to dig the dirt up and then get down in there and try to find potatoes. With the bags, it's really easy because you can just dump the whole bag onto a tarp and then just push through it and find all the potatoes. So it's actually a lot easier to harvest as well. And you can even harvest potatoes from the bottom that have started growing first before the plant is finished growing, because there are these this little opening here. I can reach in there while the plant is growing and grab a potato or two and then let it finish growing. So these are pretty cool. All right, so I have about 3 or 4 inches in the bottom here. Kind of hard to see for you guys. So now all I have to do is I need to plant my potatoes. So I'm only going to put 2 potatoes per bag. Because they are going to grow quite large and I want them to have enough space to grow as many potatoes as possible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plant them really just by dropping them on top of the soil. And I'm going to use the one that we actually cut, okay, in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it on top of the soil, and then I'm going to do exactly what I just did a moment ago, and I'm going to add 4 more inches of soil on top, okay? And I'm not going to make you guys watch that because that would be pretty boring for you. So all I have to do now is I set my potatoes on top. And the main thing you want to do is make sure that those clones, those sprouts, are pointing up, because those are the stems of the new plants and they're growing towards the top of the ground. So as long as they're pointing up, you should be good. So then what I would do is, like I said, I would just go ahead and add 4 more inches of soil. So planting potatoes is extremely easy. Again, if we add more soil as it grows, it's going to produce more potatoes. All right. So what you have to do is wait for it to grow probably about like 8 inches. So it's about 6 inches of stem. And then you cover half of the stem with more soil. So for those of you who like gardening and kind of missed out on doing this year because we're not at school right now, I actually have potato grow bags that you guys can take home and plant at home. So if you want one of these, just tell your parents to go to the Seed to Harvest website or email me, and I can send you guys the materials and you can grow your own potato. So this potato has been growing for a couple weeks. I planted it on April 10th, and it's already getting quite large, okay? So it's come above ground. The stem is probably about 4 inches right now. So if I give it another week or 2, I can probably start adding more soil in here. And it's a smaller bag because it's just 1 seed potato in here. But you should be able to grow, you know, at least maybe a half dozen or so potatoes in this little bag. Okay, so they're already growing. So I will continue to post information on our YouTube channel showing you guys how well your potatoes are growing. And you guys can check them out at the school if you guys ever go over there for a walk or something with your family. All right, do you guys have any questions? No?
Can you do the apple and pear tree with a apple and peach tree?
I don't think so, because peaches are very different than apples in terms of their needs. You could maybe do a peach and a nectarine or something, but the apple and the peach I think are a little bit different. You have to make sure that they're in the same family in order to do the grafting. But you might want to look at it online because maybe they have done that. I don't know. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
When are you gonna place them in Benham?
So they probably won't go into Benham until they start growing like this. So probably in a couple weeks. All right.
Yeah.
But they won't
So
be
in a
ready to
couple-
harvest. They usually take about 60 days is when you get baby potatoes. If you guys have those little tiny potatoes that you get at the store, like then you could harvest the baby potatoes. But if you wait 90 to 120 days, so that's 3 to 4 months, that's when you get the bigger potatoes, okay? So around, basically right around 4th of July, you should be able to harvest some of these if you want to make red, white, and blue potato salad. Any other questions? So I don't know if you guys want to stick around for it, but I did want to mention one thing. I do have a book. This is it's actually a little kid-like for you guys, but I wanted to read it because potatoes are actually really an important part of history. So not only are they great nutrition for, sorry, I'm giving my family looks because they think they're about to have a ping pong tournament in the background while I'm doing this. So they're just going to have to wait for a few minutes because they'll be too loud. But potatoes are a very important part of history because they are easy to grow and they contain a lot of calories. And so over history, when there's been a lot of impoverished people that don't have a lot of money or have really poor soil that can't grow other things, they have been able to grow potatoes and eat them. And so it has saved a lot of people from starvation. And it's also actually caused some famines as well. So in Ireland, I don't know, I know in 4th grade you guys typically learn about the Great Irish Famine. I don't know that you guys have done that yet because you haven't been at school. But in Ireland, there was a lot of political unrest there, and there was a lot of people that were relatively poor. And so in order to feed their families, they lived almost entirely off of potatoes because the potatoes were easy to grow on the lands where they could not grow anything else. They could get a lot of food from it. Potatoes also store very well. You can store a potato for an entire year in a nice potato cellar or root cellar. And so they were able to feed their families and keep their families alive. But the problem is that potatoes also can sometimes get diseases. And what caused the Great Irish Famine is that a fungus called a blight came. It was in America 2 years prior to Ireland, but it actually has, I don't know if you guys know about funguses, but funguses have spores that can blow through the air. And this fungus blew spores all the way from the UK across the water there over to Ireland. And the blight killed almost all of their potatoes. And because that's what all of their population, all their people were eating to stay alive, wiping out the entire potato crop really caused a lot of issues. They lost 1/3 of their population, and 1/2 of that third, so 1/6 of their population died from starvation because all their potatoes died. And then the other 1/6 ran away. They basically got on boats, whatever boat they could get on, in order to come to the US or to other parts of the world in order to find food and to find work because they weren't able to survive in Ireland without their potatoes. So that was one cool piece of information that I found about potatoes and history. And then this is just a book that a little girl wrote about how potatoes helped them in the Great Depression, which was a period of a lot of poverty here in the United States. So I'm just going to read this really quickly for you guys. And feel free to do your own research and see more about potatoes because I think they're pretty cool. This is a story about my grandfather and my grandmother. It is also a story about the Great Depression and how hard things were. Once upon a time, there was a mother named Agnes and a father named Clarence. They had a baby girl named Dorothy. Dorothy and her parents lived in Iowa. Clarence and Agnes had not been married long. Clarence lost his job and the bank took away their house. Agnes's father had a job in a coal mine and Clarence joined him. Then, one day, the coal mine closed. There were no other jobs available. People took jobs wherever they could find them. Someone they met told them there were jobs in Idaho picking potatoes. Agnes knew someone who had a car they could borrow, so they borrowed money for gas and left Iowa with Dorothy. For 2 weeks, they lived in tents. During the day, they picked potatoes. Dorothy played in the fields among the potato plants. The man who owned the farm said that they, in their own time, at night, could go in the overpicked fields and get the leftover potatoes. So they bought used burlap sacks for a penny each. They went out at night and picked potatoes and put them in sacks. The work only lasted 2 weeks. They picked potatoes for themselves every night. She even made a little potato bed there. At the end of the 2 weeks, they loaded up Dorothy and the potatoes and headed home. There were potatoes wherever there was room for potatoes. On the dashboard, hood, trunk, and running boards. Dorothy had to sit on the potato sacks. The money they had earned from working, they used for gas. When they got back home, Clarence and Agnes traded potatoes for other things. Groceries, clothes, and even a pig. They worked very hard to live on what they had. At last, Clarence found a job, and the family moved to Washington, D.C., and then to Hawaii. Soon, Dorothy had 2 baby brothers, Bob and Gary. Late at night, Dorothy told the boys stories of potatoes and how they were picked by the light of the moon. All this could be how I have come to like potatoes. The end. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed our lesson. And don't forget that if you want to enter in our next contest, just send me your drawings or potato creations. You want to send them to me before next Tuesday, which I believe is the 4th, if I remember correctly. All right, it's either the 4th or 5th. Oh, it's the 5th, actually, Cinco de Mayo. So get me your entries by Cinco de Mayo, and I will let you guys know who our winner is. All right? Enjoy the day, guys. I'll see you soon.